All right. Hi, everybody. It's our CFB Talk 104. Good morning to all of you. We're going to be talking TCU football ahead of their game with Texas Tech. It's going to be myself, Bobak Hayeri, and my co host, JD Moore. And we're going to be talking with former TCU kicker, Jaden Oberkrom. And that's going to be fun. And now I see everyone's in the audience. But I just wanted to thank you all for joining us. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Jaden. He was a four-year starter at TCU from 2012 to 2015, played in over 50 games for the Horned Frogs, and scored a Big 12 record, 451 points in his career. He had the most field goals made in Big 12 history, the longest field goal in TCU history against West Virginia. That was a very memorable kick. And he joined TCU actually as they were joining the Big 12 back in 2012. So he decided to sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars after the NFL Combine. But as that process began, when Cleveland picked him up, he decided to ask him to put him down and took a step back to focus on what he wanted. So at 22, he stayed in the Metroplex and started Oberkrom Kicking to coach and train young kickers. And he's also a cancer survivor. It's amazing. So, JD, have you had a chance to come up?
Yes, absolutely. Very excited to talk with Legatron, one of the greatest at TCU to ever put on those cleats and put on that jersey. He had a fantastic career, as you've already mentioned. I know a lot of people hold him very fondly and dearly in TCU fandom, and very excited to talk to him about we're going to have a huge rivalry game coming up between TCU and the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So why not talk to a guy who kicked 6 field goals against them, participated in a game where TCU ran out of fireworks at one point, got to see the Aaron Green catch in 2015. It's going to be a fantastic conversation today.
Absolutely. Hey, Jaden, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's hey, what an introduction, man! It brought back so many memories, and it feels like not that long ago, but at the same time it does. So, man, I really appreciate you guys having me, and thank you, man.
Absolutely. Just to kind of kick it off, um, this is the first year of Sonny Dykes running the program. What have been your initial thoughts on the new administration?
Yeah, I mean, obviously they've done some unexpected stuff so far. Just based off the record, I mean, we're sitting top 10 in the country, undefeated. Dykes is a really good guy. So I met Dykes when he took the job, actually at TCU after he left Cal, when he was an analyst under Patterson. Was the first time I met him, and then I'd go to SMU practices here and there, and I talked to him then. And yeah, man, it's pretty cool to see him go from like an analyst position at TCU, 3-4 years later. Now he's the head coach, and just the staff that he's acquired over there is done a tremendous job, and it truly shows on the field.
Yeah, no kidding. He's in the top 10. He's the first Big 12 coach to ever start a Big 12 career 8-0. And, I can't imagine anybody at TCU hasn't been able to take a look at those rankings to see a team in the top 10, TCU clocking in at number 7 in those first college football playoff rankings. Now, you, as a very unique player at TCU who got to be a part of that very first playoff rankings, what are your first initial reactions to that initial ranking from TCU for right now?
Yeah, a lot of the fans are pretty upset just that we're not ranked a little higher. But for guys who have been playing college football kind of in that world, it's not really a big deal to us at the moment, just because college football, it's week to week. It's if we're ranked 1 this week and we lose this weekend, it doesn't matter. And so it's although the rankings are great, I think it's a good motivation, and it proves hard work, and it proves talent, like how good your team's doing in that moment. It's still week to week. And so, I mean, I think it's just super important for us to buckle down and take Tech and then Texas and Baylor and just go through the schedule. And if we end up undefeated, I mean, they're not going to have a choice not to let us in.
As a player, how did you respond? How did the team respond internally to the 2014 rankings?
Yeah, it was it was a little shocking. It was, I think so. We were ranked 3rd, right, going into the last week of season, and we played Iowa State at TCU, and we beat them pretty bad. I want to say we won 50 to something, and we won by 30, 40 points. And then back then we didn't have a Big 12 championship. So we were considered, Big 12 co-champs, right, with Baylor, both having one loss. And so I think the committee just kind of got in a weird spot where if they picked one, um, it would make the other team upset. And so we kind of just got, pushed. Both of us got pushed to the side. So I'm super excited now that won't happen since there is a Big 12 championship. But it still was pretty shocking. And, we ended up going to the Peach Bowl and playing Ole Miss, where we won by almost 40. So I think that proves how good that football team was back in 2014.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people saw that team and said, we wish we could have expanded the playoff beyond 4 to see what TCU could have done against some of those other teams in 2014. Because especially with that Peach Bowl, I think it was a 42-3 victory. I'm pretty confident that, Bo Wallace is still having nightmares about interceptions in the end zone. But this year, TCU is on a tear, undefeated, and now you've got a huge rivalry game coming up against Texas Tech. With this huge game, I'm sure it's going to be a sellout crowd in Fort Worth. What historically has the Texas Tech rivalry been like for players in this type of game?
Yeah, it's we're lucky we're playing it at home this year because playing at Tech is a different animal. It's you almost have to protect yourself, going in and out of the locker room there. So it's going to be nice, doing that at home this year. And yeah, man, Tech always seems to play us good. Except in 2014, I think we put 80 something on them back in 2014 at home. But man, Joey McGuire's turned that program around. I think out of the 8 games they've played, I want to say 5 of the teams they played were ranked at the time. So they've had a pretty tough schedule. One being NC State pre-conference, and I think it's going to be a battle. McGuire is an awesome dude. I respect the mess out of him. And yeah, I'm happy we get to play it at home this year.
You mentioned the ability to play at home. What was the atmosphere like when you would play on the road against Texas Tech? Because I remember the 2013 game, I think it was a fox ran on the field, and that was maybe the 8th weirdest thing that happened in that game. 2015, you had Aaron Green going with that last-minute touchdown to save the game. What is the atmosphere like when you have to go on the road to Texas Tech as opposed to hosting them at home?
Yeah, it's not fun. Tech's a really fun place to play if you're the home team, but if you're the visitor team, I mean, man, it is brutal. Just the locker room was really cramped at the time. Fans are they're known for throwing tortillas, but they also throw water bottles. They're throwing batteries at us. Like the big D-size batteries. I mean, you have to wear your helmet the whole game, so yeah, you're over on the sideline trying to focus and locked in, but you're also, feel like you're in a war zone out there. And like I said, it'd be really cool to play for Tech, but it's not very fun to play at Tech.
I am sure it is definitely a hostile environment in Lubbock, but I'm sure it's going to be an incredible atmosphere in Fort Worth this weekend. In some of the games that you played there, I know in 2012 you had the 6 field goals made, and then in 2014 TCU quite literally ran out of fireworks when y'all put 82 on Texas Tech. Let's talk about that 2014 game for a quick second. The offense is clicking with Trayvon Boykin, Josh Doxson. You're out there nailing all the kicks that you've got for the day. What was that game like for you to witness?
Yeah, back in 2014, I want to say it was like end of third, fourth quarter. We all just kind of looked up at the scoreboard, and I mean, I don't think any of us had realized how bad it had actually got. Our team was just, I mean, Boykin was just insane. I mean, he could make something out of nothing. Which kind of reminds me of Duggan, right now, the way he's playing, just, how versatile he is on the ground and in the air. And so, yeah, I mean, you never want to, you never want to put 80 points on a team. It's probably not the most respectful thing to do, but I really just think it got out of hand. I mean, we were putting our twos in, and it was. I don't think anybody expected that, but I really do think it just proves how good that 2014 team was. Which would have been cool to go to the playoffs, but I'm glad we proved it against, I think, number 9 Ole Miss in the Peach Bowl.
You brought up the comparison of Max Duggan to Trayvon Boykin, and I think he's an incredible story on the national scene right now, especially given He had a couple of years as the starter, was looking to grow, was looking to develop. Wasn't even the starter at the start of this season. Chandler Morris got that original start against Colorado. But now Max Duggan is looking like probably the best Heisman candidate from TCU since Trayvon Boykin. What have your impressions been of Duggan and the offense right now under Sonny Dykes?
Yeah, he's a fun player to watch. Like I said, he kind of makes nothing or kind of makes something out of nothing when he's out there on the field. So it's funny. So we hosted a kicking camp at TCU this summer, and my wife was there kind of helping out. And as she was walking into the indoor, this football player held the door open for her, and she said, "Man, this football player was like super big and strong." And she ended up saying, she was like, "I think it was Max Duggan." And so we pulled up a picture, and she's like, "Yeah, it was him." And she's like, "Jaden, he's a quarterback. He's huge." And it's so funny just like watching him on the field, just because, I mean, I wouldn't want to tackle this guy, coming at me. And it's so funny because, that's the last person on the offensive side of the field that you would think that you would be scared of. But man, Max Duggan's a big dude. And when he starts running downhill, I think a lot of the, guys in the secondary just kind of second guess themselves if they want to make that play or not.
Jaden, you coach young kickers now and help them get scholarships. What has that experience been like for you?
It's super rewarding. We have guys at Texas. I work with Griffin Kell since sophomore year of high school at TCU and SME. We have a lot of guys in the Big 12. We have some in the Big 10. We have some in the ACC. It's just been super rewarding. Just starting these guys in the 8th, 9th grade, training them weekly, and then just watching them sign. And then it's funny now because it's kind of gotten to the point. We're 6 years in now. Driving back from training on Saturdays, I'm trying to flip through all the games on my phone, watching all these guys kick that I train on TV. And it's, a couple years ago, I would just have one or two playing at a time on Saturdays, but now I kind of have to pick and choose who I get to watch when they're playing on Saturdays. So it's been a blessing. It's obviously my calling, and man, it's been really, really rewarding to watch them grow through that process.
Yeah, it's a growing group of kicking disciples. The what I mean, because obviously you enjoy teaching, but what part of it appeals to you? I mean, I teach just at a university, and for me, it's fascinating to understand kind of what aspects of the process appeal to someone who decides to follow that calling and giving others an opportunity to learn a trade or learn a profession. Where do you enjoy the what aspects of the actual process appeal to you most?
Yeah, just there's a couple things. So just watching them grow and get better as kickers, just having them come out for one session and then leaving better. You just feel like you help somebody, kind of like having a servant's heart in a way. Um, it's nice too because some of these families who end up investing their money and their time in this process, it ends up paying them back, 10, 100 fold sometimes, just based off the scholarship money that they get. So just watching them go through that process, the lifetime impact it could have on them financially just by getting a free education somewhere, and man, just discipling. I mean, it's you wouldn't imagine how many phone calls I get. I probably have 2 or 3 phone calls a day from kids and parents that are going through whatever with coaches and family and thoughts in their head, just that I get to talk to and kind of disciple in that way. They say you don't have to be in ministry to do ministry, and this is certainly my ministry.
Absolutely. And Jaden, I would love to hear about some of the biggest success stories that you have had as a coach, because you've mentioned guys like Griffin Kell, who now they're playing at TCU, but you've also been able to coach so many kids who are now playing Division I ball. What have been some of your best success stories as a coach?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we have 2 other coaches in here that work with me. So we have Antonio and Corey. So Corey works with all of our punters, and Antonio just joined our staff, and he works with all of our snappers. So they're starting to get some really good talent in the DFW area. So I just want to give them a shout out. But man, so you mentioned Griffin Kell, and so I want to tell this story because it's such a good one. So Griffin, I started training when he was about a sophomore in high school. And Griffin likes to fish and golf, and I like to fish and golf. So we kind of just end up hanging out more now. But we still train whenever he has time. So anyway, so Griffin, one of his family members had passed away. This is about 2 years ago. And so they were going through his house, kind of cleaning out his stuff. And Griffin found a photo, or a picture that he had drawn. So Griffin drew this picture when he was like 6 or 7 years old. And it was a picture of Griffin dressed up as a football player in a TCU uniform. And the weird thing is he was wearing number 39, which is his number now. And so I mean, who would have thought that, this guy who's a kid who's 7 years old, who just happens to draw a photo of him wearing a TCU jersey, would come true and let it be the same number. It's not like he was number 7 or number 13. I mean, 39 is it's not a very popular number. So I remember when he sent me that picture, that really, really moved me. And it's, just making these kids' dreams come true.
Griffin is an incredible story, and I love the fact that he's got that childhood picture of him playing in a TCU jersey in number 39. He gets to do that, and he gets to do it from some of your coaching as well. And I'm sure there's a lot of dreams of parents of their kids being able to go to school and get a scholarship. That's been so impactful on their life. I can't imagine the kind of ministry that you've been able to do. Because, I mean, again, the way that you said it, I think, is just absolutely the best way to approach that. The idea that you don't have to be in ministry in order to do a ministry to others. I've absolutely loved that philosophy that you've taken on.
Yeah, thanks. It's it's funny because when I made that decision to stop kicking and to kind of start this stuff up, I would say 99% of the people in my life just kind of said, "Hey, like what are you doing? Just go make your money for a couple of years and then you can do this." And the first year or so when I started this, it was pretty rough. It was, I was living with my parents. I didn't have any money, and I was just trying to get it off the ground. And so just to see, what God has made this into, 5 years later from that moment is really just breathtaking and insane. And now those same people in my life, they're like, "Wow, dude, you're so lucky. You're successful and stuff." And, it's funny how, people change and stuff like that. But man, it really is fun, and it is a really good blessing to be able to pour into these kids.
What are some of the challenges players now have when they're being recruited as opposed to when you were being recruited a decade ago?
Yeah, so Twitter, obviously Twitter is a great marketing tool to get recruited these days, which I didn't have when I was going through it. So I was sending, DVDs of me kicking to colleges, right? Just so they could plug it in their computer and watch it. And so now, you would think it's a little easier to get recruited through Twitter, which it definitely helps. But just the market is it's so big. And so, you have all these college coaches with, 1,000 DMs that they physically can't read. They don't have the time to go through and watch the film. So it's really hard to kind of connect with some coaches sometimes just because they're getting hit from so many different angles and so many different recruits through Twitter.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, I think one of the things that I've always loved in our DMs are the random kids of like, "Hey, can you check out my huddle? Hey, can you take a look at this?" And we're like, "Hey, man, we're just like a college football site. We're not necessarily, the ones being able to deliver that to FBS coaches." But I absolutely understand that pressure of social media of not just I can be on this and be recruited, but so many other people are doing that as well. What's some of the advice that you have given these young guys when they're trying to figure out social media during their recruiting process? And what do you do to make sure that they're doing their best selves on social media as well?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a lot that goes into it just based off, the angle of the videos we take, the days we take them. So you don't want a ton of wind. But what I tell most of the guys we train is man, kicking is king. If you're hitting a good ball, I mean, it's going to show on video. It's going to show in person. And so if you focus on the kicking, the recruiting will come. A college coach is not going to, offer a kid just because I said so, if he's bad, because his job is on the line, right? Like he has a family to provide for. Some of these coaches are making, some really, really good money doing this. And the last thing they're going to do is just offer a kid who's not ready. Even if it's the best marketing kid on Twitter you've ever seen. If he doesn't have the talent, they're not going to offer. And so we really just try to preach here, just focus on the kicking and then the recruiting.
Oh, sounds like we had a little bit of an audio hiccup there. Sometimes that happens because folks are using phones. Jaden, I just wanted to follow up on that. What was your recruiting process like? Because you arrived just as the Frogs were in the Big 12. What convinced you to be a Horned Frog?
Yes, I mean I'll be straight up. So I ended up winning their kicking camp the summer going into my senior year, and Coach Patterson offered me a scholarship a couple of days after that. And so I remember talking to him in his office. The one thing he said that really got me was he said, "Hey, you know about the 70-30?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, there's 70% of the university here. 70% of them are women, and 30% are men." And so when he said that, man, I was sold. I was single at the time, and I was ready to go, man. So yeah, it was an easy decision after he said that.
you know, Based on your own recruiting experience, actually, I don't know if this one's even going to make sense because I was going to ask, what have you advised some of your own, kicking camp people based on your own recruiting that you could do differently or you would do differently? I mean, if you could go back and restart your recruiting process all over again, would you do it any differently?
I wouldn't change a thing just because TCU obviously it ended up being a great fit. It gave me the platform to start everything, you know, the rest of my life has been since then. And so I don't think I would change anything. There are some kicks that I would change, going back and looking at some games, that I would change. As far as the recruiting process, I think we did a decent job, and it really paid out in the end.
Jaden, I also have to laugh a little bit because I also went to TCU, and the fact that Coach Patterson had also said the 70-30. I mean, I can very distinctly remember when I was trying to figure out what college I wanted to go to, and you get all the admissions mail of, the brochures, the flyers, like, come to us. One of the things that I always distinctly remember from my recruiting to TCU as a student was there was a postcard on the front. It had the official TCU. It had, I don't know, maybe like Frog Fountain or something else like that. And on the back, it had a girl's handwriting, specifically said the 70-30 rule. And there was a little bit of lipstick that was also put on the back of that postcard. And I'll tell you, as a 17-year-old, that also motivated me pretty strongly as well. So the fact that,
What? How? They didn't do that when I went to USC. I just got like something that was very generic, or the UC certainly didn't send it. Like you guys, this is something I was totally unfamiliar with.
Hey man, it works. It works.
That's funny, man. It's I didn't get anything with lipstick on it, but that's really funny. So I ended up dating this girl when I was a freshman, right, in college, and she was a senior in high school. And so, man, I would walk to class my whole college career. I would put, my hands up to my eyes and just stare at the ground on my way to class. I mean, it was, she's my wife now, so I can say that. But man, it's a place where you just, stare at the sidewalk as you walk. You know what I'm saying?
Hey man, my wife is on this call as well. She also, we also met together at TCU. So you know what? I just love the fact that TCU was somewhere that we were able to find the people that we needed for our lives, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that came with that. And again, I just laugh at the fact that Gary Patterson had also used that as a recruiting tool. Absolutely love that story.
Yeah, I'm sure he used it on more people than me, but that's the one that got me.
Absolutely. Well, Jaden, I know that we've got about 5 minutes left here to go. So if you wouldn't mind, I would love to go down a little bit down on Glory Road and go back through a little bit of memories. One of the things that I know that had to be a significant moment for you was your last college game was that Wild Alamo Bowl game against Oregon, down 31-0 at halftime, winning that game in triple overtime. I would love to hear what that perspective was like when Gary Patterson changed the shirt and changed the momentum of that game, and y'all ended up winning that game. What was that experience like in San Antonio?
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better ending, to your college football career. It was breathtaking, kind of what happened at the end. I don't think we expected it. we were as far as the kickers were concerned, at halftime we weren't even in the locker room. We were just outside in the hallway eating a sandwich. Just I mean, we thought it was over. And so I just remember, going out, and I think I kicked a field goal at the beginning, and then we scored a couple of times, and I ended up having to make one to tie it. And that's when it kind of hit me like, wow, this game's getting, this is crazy. And so we ended up going to overtime. I think second overtime, I had a 46 yarder to send it into a third overtime. And every kick I've had in games, I've always gone out with like really positive thoughts, doing everything I can to make that kick. That one was actually a little different. So I remember walking out there. This is the last college game of my career, and the only thought I had, I was just thinking like, man, all the kicks I've made, this might be my last kick, and what if I miss this? Like how will people remember me? If I miss this one kick, which is obviously not the best, self-talk you could have going out for a field goal of that caliber. And man, to be honest with you, I hit it terrible. It just happened to go straight. And what a game to end on. It was one for the books. And I want to say it's one of the greatest comebacks in college football history.
It is. I believe 31 points is the tie for the all-time, and I think it's something like the 2006, like, I don't know, like the Meineke Car Care Bowl or something else like that. And I'm sure it had like Minnesota, Texas Tech.
It was Minnesota, Texas Tech. I remember that because my graduate degree is from Minnesota, and to go from USC to Minnesota teaches you how to be humble about sports success. Actually, and I was going to say, Jaden, you've kicked some field goals against Minnesota yourself. So as you know, it's Minnesota. It's not hard. I think you have two. I think you went 2-0 against Minnesota. Am I right?
Yeah. So this is funny. I actually told this story last week. So we played Minnesota our senior year in 2014. In 2015 on the road, and so that was the first game of the season. We were ranked second in the country at the time. And I remember going out. It was the first drive of the game, so it was the first kick of the whole season. It was a 53-yard field goal, and I was taking my steps, and I looked up at the scoreboard, and on the big screen they had, is it a gopher?
Yes, they had the gopher, yeah, or
dramatic gopher, yes,
the dramatic gopher, yeah. They still do that. I don't think they play the music because I think they get in trouble for that during a field goal, but they put it on that big screen because that was the big game to kind of kick off that stadium.
Yes, yeah. It was a big gopher up there just making some weird noise as I'm taking my steps, and man, I hit it terrible. It just happened to be straight and it went in, but then the gopher almost got me.
Jaden, how distracting are those things whenever you go to kick? Because I know TCU does the Hypno Frog now. I don't know if they still do like those pulsating noises or anything else like that, but they definitely put up the Hypno Frog on the Jumbotron screens when you have the dramatic gopher at Minnesota. Like, how effective are those distractions as a kicker for you?
I really think it depends on the guy. For me, I thought it was just more fun. Instead of trying to let it get in my head, I tend to just have fun with that stuff. Most of the funniest interactions are on the sideline. When let's say it's coming down to a big kick and you're kicking in the net to get warm, like in an away game. That crowd, will say some really crazy stuff to you as you're warming up in that net. And man, most of the stuff, although people just from a distance might think that it was really terrible, man, I thought it was just brutally funny. The stuff they'd say, it's and it would motivate me, because I love to prove people wrong. And so, having big kicks on the road with people talking to you on the sideline, it was a really, really fun experience.
Absolutely. I can imagine. And now you get to mentor all these young guys who get to go have that experience themselves. And I'm sure that is incredibly rewarding for you. Jaden, it's been about 30 minutes. Really, really appreciate your time. Before we go ahead and let you go, would absolutely love to know where we can find you and what you will be doing for your training in the upcoming months. If someone wants to get interested in your kicking camps, in your coaching, where can they find you and what can they do?
Yeah, so our website is texaskicking.com. You can find me on obviously Twitter, Instagram, Facebook are the three main ones. Just Jaden Oberkrom on all of those. And yeah, man. So we're on Instagram, especially. We're going to be posting a lot more content as far as the kicking aspect and as far as my faith aspect. So we kind of ramped up posting last week, and we're gonna keep that going for the next couple of years. So yeah, if you guys are interested, just follow us on one of those three platforms or texaskicking.com.
Well, thank you, Jaden. It was great talking to you this morning.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me, man. It's hopefully TCU can go 9-0 and go on to the next week. I think they're playing Texas after that. Is that right?
Yes, they've got Texas on the road in Austin the week after that, and then another rivalry game against Baylor following.
Nice. Yeah, if we can just take it week by week, man, I think we really have a chance. So thank you guys for having me.
Thank you. It was good talk. That was fun, and I know JD will be thrilled if the Frogs can win out. I think it'll be interesting for all of college football. I mean, the more teams that are competing, the better it is. I think just as a neutral fan in general, as far as we can get into this season. All right, well, that's what we had for you this morning. This is our CFB Talk 104. We were talking with four-year TCU starter record holder Jaden Oberkrom. And on behalf of myself, Bob Akayeri, on behalf of my co-host, JD Moore, thank you for joining us. We hope you all have a great rest of your day. Now, I'm going to hang up and listen.